and today's topic is all about mold and how mold affecting our health, metabolic health, and even our lifestyle. So, what is mold? Mold is microscopic fungi. Yes, the same fungi family that grow in the trees, sometimes even eat, but they are microscopic. It's a huge family of fungi, and the mold is one of them. They thrive through the damp. Any fungi, they need we need actually warmness a little bit and damp. They need water. They need this condensation to grow and to thrive. They reproduce their spores and spread easily through the air and through the touch. So you can breathe with your hands, clothing, and with the air spread all around. And fungi, they are part of our microbiomes everywhere. They are in the air and the surfaces, they're everywhere. But usually they don't live long enough because if it's no damp, there is no special temperature, they actually can't live really there, and they die, with different words. The mold we're going to talk today is about, of course, is indoors, is habitat mold, and they did grow, live within us and have negative effect on our health. And one of them will be penicillium. Yes, this penicillium that actually after that they have antibiotics. And black mold, the most common, the black mold, what you can see. And today we're going to discover how we can, first of all, identify we're affected by mold. Secondly, that we have the mold in our surroundings, in office or in our house, in our bedroom, and carpet, furniture, and of course how to treat and where to search, where you need to put your nose and where you need to be careful, and what you should do. First of all, I want you all check your environment and check what is your humidity levels. So I highly recommend this different types of weather station or humidity, then you can temperature and what is humidity level in the place where you're based. Of course, it really depends on your ground floor, upper floor, is a bedroom, or on location and the time of the year. We recommend try to keep your moisture level no higher than 60%. Anything around 50 to 60 really depends as well on the temperatures. High temperatures and high humidity, more chance you might have a mold or even low ventilation, issue with ventilation. So it's not only issue in terms of moisture level, how this area gets ventilated, and what is condensation in the place. Because if you have regular water leaks, condensation, or flooded by leaking roof, by leaking some sort of pipes, or the water flow in the bathroom stays somewhere and vaporize and creating condensation in the corners, quite often it's happening, and you have inadequate heating to vaporize and neutralize it. And remember, anything that the heating should have normal adequate ventilation. Sometimes people closing up this ventilation because they feel this draft, but that is a huge mistake. If you remove and block your ventilation, your condensation actually getting worse and more high risk to have a fungi. Of course, check your pipe. Sometimes the pipes get built within the walls and the fungi living within the walls. That's quite a hard case after that to treat, and you probably need to do absolute renovation and knock down the walls and sort this out. But it's not about the building construction, but yes, mold is really a lot about building and construction and house maintenance and environment maintenance, and part of our daily life. Yes, building construction, part of lifestyle medicine. As we arrive today, it's very important your heating, your moisture level, your pipes, and environment where you spend most of your time. So inadequate heating in winter time or autumn time, like UK, or some other places in the world where it's high cold winters or autumns, a lot of rain, it's very important to make sure you have adequate heating and ventilation, because to make sure you don't have this condensation. Remember that we're creating this condensation. Condensation is when transport water loss, skin scientist, when you put your both hands and you feel this warmness that's creating this condensation, transport water loss, heating another hand, and two flows creating this condensation in between. So this is what happening. Then something warmer particles there goes up, yeah, and then they stuck in the ceiling, for example, and in the corners the accumulates and fungi might easily live there in some corners of the buildings, or even flat surface. So that's why overcrowding, and in terms of drying the clothing, so if you don't use a tumble dryer, or you have too much clothing without ventilation in between, because if you're wearing the clothing or not still damp, again, that might create this extra condensation inside between clothing, and the mold easily can spread and leave on the surface of the clothing, your furniture, your shoes. Oh, love it. Extra your feet fungi. What can be better for that? So that's why, please keep in mind that good life and lifestyle medicine is not only about what you eat, how you move, but where are you located and what is surrounded us. Let's discuss about early signs of mold. And do you live around the mold about you? Mold is everywhere, I would say. Microfungi everywhere, but they don't want, they have a lot of colonies and they want to be in the air. Air, the sign is probably the most important, because you breathing this in and they stay in the lungs and affecting other organisms all over the body and might be even deadly. So what it will be early sign is musty, earthy smell in room or wardrobe. That's why make sure you tidy up your wardrobe and your wardrobe in order. It's worth to bin and let go some clothing that you don't like. After keep them for years without wearing them, and then they are full of dangerous fungi in there. They might be green, might be black, there might be white spots on the walls and the ceilings. Usually you see this tiny little like warmer parts and corners, you know, somewhere there is a worse ventilation. It's harder to ventilate the larger spaces, yeah. What we can see in terms of a peeling paint or damp wallpaper, that's already quite a lot of them. Condensation on windows. If you again don't have a right ventilation in your room, and respiratory irritation worsening at home, you have start to sneeze, itch your eyes, that sort of things. Sometimes more might be invisible in furniture or soft furniture, some sort of maybe even on leather, fabrics, and wood, for example. How that affecting on our health? Allergic reaction is sneezing, runny nose, in each eyes. I'm allergic. I don't know what fungi, but when I growing up, it was some sort of fungi, and I'm allergic to the dust and some raw fungi. I always start to sneeze, and sneezing, itchiness, and like literally sneezing non-stop, red eyes, and runny nose. I don't know what fungi, but I grown up in this condition. I remember coming back in the old living childhood environment, and there was a sofa definitely affected by some sort of mold or something, and I was sneezing non-stop, couldn't sleep. Now it's gone. Sofa actually been treated, and yeah, I don't have allergy anymore. We probably what type of fungi or mold I was allergic to, I have no idea. I haven't done DNA test or any sort of test. We just treated the sofa, left it in the sun, and actually changed the environment, and yeah, it's gone. So the danger here that allergic reaction might accelerate into the asthma and chronic cough. In this case, you go into the chronic condition and creating these inflammatory biomarkers, and these inflammatory biomarkers walking all around we don't want a chronic condition. Lifestyle medicine is all about to find the root the problem come from, yeah, and you can imagine this chronic and inflammation biomarkers might be from the mold is one of them. That's why our job is to inform you that ideally we want to check everything, including this tiny little microscopic fungi. It might be fungus sinusitis, ear infection. Mainly is quite often happening with tiny little children. They're more sensitive. And the children grow in this environment as well. Keep an eye for kids. As I said, I highly recommend you to have, mainly for newborns, for little babies, check the moisture, because children are very sensitive to very dry air and very high humidity as well. It might be affected. In the same as adults, make sure the bedroom when you sleep we have adequate ventilation and adequate temperatures and moisture level, because if it's too dry, you might be as well, your eyes might be affected, your throat might be affected, and you increase your dehydration. Yeah, because the other organism trying to adapt to their very dry environment. Ideally, we want anything above 35, 40, ideally maybe around 40%. And we want to get the plus minus. Of course, depends the season and depends on the day. So what might be your symptoms? People more and more now complain about fatigue, brain fog, and poor concentration. We have so many reasons why that can happen, metabolic shifts. But of course, if you have high inflammation biomarkers, they might be caused by mycotoxin, this toxin that gets through the air into your organism for the respiratory and even into your gut, and affecting gut-brain axis. And as a result, this mycotoxin do their job. Remember, this is a toxin, and positive effect could be only microdose. Mycotoxin is not good. If it's tiny little dose, your organism will gonna fight and neutralize it. But if it's regular and constant, they start shift your metabolism, and as a result, you will have started to develop a lot of difficult health problems. And what they do next? They run to the pharmacy, get something for the throat spray or the eye drops, moisturize them, and they absolutely ignore the root of the problem is your mold and fungi where you are living. So that's why mycotoxin producing molds might affect liver. It's affecting your kidneys and even nerves endings. As a result, you might have sleep deprived. You might even more high risk have a dementia and neuroleptic diseases and disorders and anxiety, because something constantly triggering your nerve system. It's more dangerous, of course, for young children and for elderly and the people with reduced immune system. And of course, mycotoxin reduce your immune system. Why mold can be deadly? As we know, I don't know, in the UK, sadly, it was a sad incident that a little boy died because of exposure of the mold environment. Mycotoxin disrupts cell respiration and immune defense, and chronic inflammation can lead to autoimmune responses. And as a result, it might be respiratory failure as long-term exposure. Of course, if you just stay in there for a short period of the time, you might notice, but immune cells and your general immune system might be affected, and all others problems might appear. It's linked to neurological mitochondrial dysfunction. This means the energy will be not producing that much. That's why you'll be more feeling this fatigue. You might feel as well this brain fog or something missing. You might develop depression. You might be more nervous and more reactive, like more anxious. And hidden molds, and if you live in somewhere and you can't see the mold, but the mold in the air, so it might be hidden under the floor or inside the walls, and still releasing this toxin, then you inhaling it over time still will affect and will be very hard to find and identify what causing your poor health. So in terms of respiratory, you're higher risk to develop bronchitis, asthma, COPD might worsening. In terms of immune system, you're constantly inflammation, so you stimulate your pro-inflammatory biomarkers like interleukins, cytokines, etc. Digestive gut microbiomes can affect your leaky gut, and leaky gut, the toxin going directly into your bloodstream, and of course need attention. Majority of microbiome testing do test for fungi, different sort of fungi, and if you find something from the air and affecting your gut, will be addressed. So that's why gut is important in the way what we inhaling, what we're eating, also important. In terms of hormones as well, your stress, your cortisol get dysregulated, circadian rhythms, so you might have your sleep might be deprived, and of course skin, you might have a fungus, dermatitis, rashes, eczemas, and different flushes on your skin. That as well affecting not only is affecting scalp and beauty, but I'm going to talk about beauty a little bit later. How we can detect mold at home or in office. First of all, is all of us responsibility to detect any dangerous environment for all of us and children, and trying to facilitate, or if you have a knowledge, you notice somewhere else mold, making actions, mainly if you see there is a little children, to prevent the death. Because visual checks, first of all, we quite often can see it. They're on the walls, they're on the ceiling, under the carpet, or under the furniture. So you push. That's why as well, when you put design in your wardrobes, design in your furniture, make sure it's a little bit further from the wall. Have this a little bit, at least 30 centimeters gap for circulation and ventilation of the area. Because in between the wall, there is a cold wall, for example, and a warmer chair. For example, you're sitting on the back of your sofa, and you're warming up this sofa, and as a result we're creating this invisible, if you like, condensation, and a lot of people sitting, for example, and there is a perfect place for the mold to live out of nowhere, because it's everywhere. Just they need the good environment to thrive, and so it's very easy for mold to be there, and after that distribute and affect our health. Okay. Second, of course, we can see that's it, that's the mold, and that needs your immediate attention. Not next week, not next year, not when you'll have the money to do that. You have to act immediately, mainly if you have children and elderly, or you have a chronic disease, or maybe you're simply not aware about your chronic disease. That's why that should be addressed immediately and with responsibilities. Smell. Musty odor, this, you can something weird, when you're coming in, maybe in bathrooms, it stings a little bit. You can't identify what is that. Quite often it's mold. It's not only the toilet, quite often, and the bathrooms, quite often that's the place they might be, that smelly place. Wardrobes, you open on some unventilated old areas, the old mold living there for a very long period of time. So, identified moisture levels. If you're higher than 60%, then you have a higher risk that a mold might grow there, mainly in the areas condensation, a little bit of leak or water or something. That already your attention. Okay, let me check that something sour could be. You can use UV or black light. Some mold fluoresce, and you can see them because they're not blood mold. But if you use UV lamp, they can buy them Amazon or on eBay and different online shops. They just classic UV or black light, and you do your examination there where it's very, very dark, or you create this dark environment, and you just look around in the corner. If you have a concern, there might be in the mold somewhere. And remember, immediate actions. We have so many sprays, you can buy them. You can buy them in do-it-yourself shops, or even normal cleaning departments in every single supermarket. Then you can supply and buy do-it-yourself ear test kits to detect airborne spores as well. You can buy them online or in more specific specialized shop for the mold. Again, it might be the good idea if you're sneezing, or you enter in some areas and you have results and effect, or you have a concern that somewhere you don't see, but you feel that in here might be the mold, and I can feel it, I can sense it. and thermal cameras. Then we find the cold and damp areas. It might be as well a damp from somewhere, and the mold might go even from outside the wall inside. So it might be still hidden, but the microspores can already have a negative effect on you. Professional mold detection options is for big companies or for large landlords. Or if you can't find it yourself but you still have concerns, they can do air sampling. They count spores per square meter per meters in the air. This surface sampling, so they take the sample sent in or in the tape, and then they send to the lab. And they can do even DNA services based or PCR tests that identify species exactly of the mold what you there. So they give you the same DNA, we can surface it and send to the lab, and then we'll have more precise genetic code, which strain and what will be the best treatment options. Of course, it's more expensive. Of course, is infrared thermography is if it's in case of a hidden damp zones, and of course a classic UV inspection. They can identify contamination patterns. Where are they? What professional can do? They do a full indoor environmental inspection and identify moisture checks. They find for leaks, condensation. They collect air, surface, and DNA samples, and of course ventilation. As I said, ventilation here playing a crucial role. The people who live in the big buildings, it's very important to check regularly filters, because filters and the mold, as I say, is go through the air, might circulate. So big block of flats, or the block of flats we use in the one system of heating, for example, via air is very important. Make sure you clean your ventilation pipes and do the surface in regular basis to avoid all the spreading in there. So you might, if you live in the flat, you might don't have a mold, but if you're using the central ventilation systems like big offices or big flats housing residential flats, I know it's not your responsibility, it's a landlord responsibility, but your health is your responsibility. You can't just say after that when somebody dies or somebody have a chronic disease, blame somebody. You have to act. And when you have a knowledge, you know how to act and where to look at. If you find something familiar in your family members or on yourself. So that's why they have to provide, in terms of you living somewhere, the safety levels report, and immediately start the action. Okay, how to remove and treat the mold? If you identify you have a mold, you have to fix and dry affected areas. And the actual improvement goes very quickly within 24 to 48 hours. As I said, mold is something need immediate actions, or ideally you want to remove yourself from negative effect on your health. You can remove a mold with detergents, with vinegar, or with hydrogen peroxide. As I said, there's plenty of different options you can buy on every single, literally nearly every single shop, in cleaning departments, and do it yourself, building and repair anti-mold, different sprays or even paints. Avoid dry brushing or vacuuming without filters. If you're working on the mold, make sure you have a proper mask and even glasses. Anything will contain mucus, so eyes, nose, and open skin, so wounds or something. Make sure you cover very appropriately covered yourself. And you can as well use the air purification systems after the treatment or sanding off this mold. And of course, replace carpets. For example, if the carpet, shoes, make sure for shoes, for example, quite often they have a dampness in the shoes. A lot of us know, because have a moisture from the feet or get wet somewhere, when you dry them properly, they leave something in the corner, and here you are, there's a fungi there, and then they can affect and distribute all over. So mold control and prevention. Maintain, as I said, humidity for below 50%, 60%, I would say. Anything above 60% is a higher danger. And if you have a high moisture level, just buy dehumidifier for winter times, or some ground levels if you in the corners, to make sure, because if the moisture less than 50%, it will be hard for them to thrive. It will be very hard for them to affect your health. Improve air circulation, so fan, open the windows, make sure you have an airflow, and avoid condensation. If you see condensation in the morning in your windows, or mainly in the area of elderly or children, that's an alarm. Make sure you do reasonable steps, because that might cause different sort of fungi and then affect. Avoid drying clothing indoors. Have a style who've been in Italy, Spain, your life always drying outside. I know in the UK we have a lot of law and regulations that they can't hang out other clothing, mainly on the flats outside. But we have a temper dries, and they still have a private gardens, just dry them outside the house. And make sure you ventilate the area. If you have to dry indoors, make sure you have good ventilation in this area, and the heating after that. Install and keep it a little bit longer ventilation in the bathroom, in the kitchens, because kitchen is the area where we eat, and if that will be everywhere, can make the food, and then the food we eat it and go to the garden, affecting our garden and leaky garden, so on. And of course, regular inspect hidden damp spots. If you know this is my problematic area, make sure you act within reasonable time. What I can recommend is, of course, is air purifiers and different sort of absorbents. HEPA filters, trap mold spores might be quite good. Activated carbon filters absorb mycotoxins. Bentonite and different types of clay, they bind toxin in the air and the body. Charcoal bags to reduce humidity indoors. Silica gels, you probably noticed them by the food and the trainers, you in the bags, everywhere they have these silica gels. And you can keep them as well to dry in the cupboards, mainly if you have a lot of overloaded cupboards. But again, ideally, just watch Marie Kondo or other decluttering, declutter your cupboards and make sure is the order in there. It's always better for your mental health and in general for your health, everything to be in order. Less is more. Remember, less is more. Less belongings, less fungi, less sugar. In general, less is more. If you follow this rule, you'll be easier for you to balance everything, because if not, it'll be too much to balance. But if you have less of everything, it's easier for you to balance and look after your health. Dehumidifiers. I love dehumidifiers because I always have them and I give to my friends in terms of winter or renovation, because when you start to take the wallpapers or do renovation, you always find something, leaking something. Mainly UK, a lot of houses here being so old, the roof, they constantly leaking this, the pipes, something flooring hidden here, there. So that's why it's always a good idea to have dehumidifier and check and they treat the room. And if you do refurbishment, ideally, of course, during the summertime, because if you need to do treatment in winter, it's already naturally much higher humidity. Place them in basement, in the bathrooms, in bedrooms. If you know that ventilation is inadequate, for example, during winter time, and you can't guarantee, or you decide not to open the windows, it's a good idea to put good dehumidifiers. Again, in the area drying your clothes is maybe also a good idea to place overnight dehumidifier. It will speed up as well drying your clothes in the bathroom, for example, if you have a quick hand wash or something, or you've been in the all long spa bath when you just enjoyed your bathroom, and then inadequate ventilation, you can switch on for a few hours, or overnight is good. And then you see, oh my god, they collect so much water in there, and then carry on. And that will already guarantee and prevent this fungal, because fungi need only 12 to 24 hours to start colony. And if you continue, so if you have only one bathroom and a lot of residents, so you took the bathroom, somebody took the shower, then another one, then the one doesn't know what to do in the water, wash something, or left the towels to dry. You know, this condensation all around. So it's gives you that useful tricks for busy environment and busy lifestyle. Keep temperatures about 18 to 22 degrees. Again, is quite good for general environment, and as well is be more guarantee if you have temperatures from 18 to 22 degrees and your moisture level less than 60%, ideally less than 50%, but it really depends. You already will be quite good place. And moisture humidity with hydrometer as well. Hydrometers, you can buy these different stations. Temperature usually come in humidity. They're only a few pounds. They're not expensive at all. And alert about 50% monitoring check. 50-60% is really depends on your ventilation and temperatures. When to stop to worry or when you need to retest. If you treat it, of course, you'll be conscious, oh my God, the mold might be back, and it might be back. You need to retest, not really need or recheck after 1 or 2 weeks, because if any microspore stays there or environment still beneficial, they will grow back. You know, sometimes so you just paint it, you know, you just everything being nice, but you didn't treat the issue, they're coming back, yeah, and then you see this mold coming back and effect, not bad, it's decoration effect, but we want no decoration, not aesthetics. We want your health not to be triggered by negative toxins produced by this mold. If it's no visible growth or odor, so it's a good sign. If it's grow, again, do something else. Your method wasn't good enough. If you can't do it yourself, call for professional help. Monitor for seasonal humidity spikes, so it's autumn and winter times. Inspect walls monthly in winter time, mainly the corners or triggered points, whereas again, everything breaks, you know, sadly. Even the pipes, the water collection, roof, because of wind, hurricanes, or accidents, something happening, or you're just getting cracked, something somewhere, and these leaks, if never been before, they can be. So that's why it's worth to check. Yeah, just keep an eye on everything. That's why when you have less things to keep eye on it, you can balance it, yeah, because you have too many items and too many things to control, it's hard. But when you have a knowledge, that are getting more organized and more in routine. So stop dehumidifiers where humidity is under 45 degrees, because absolutely low risks if you are in, and lower actually, anything under 30% in terms of moisture have a negative effect as well. Very dry air, also not good. If you have very dry air, so make sure you have a moisture, yeah, because you really dry on your skin, your eyes, your throat, then you breathe. It's not beneficial as well. So detox support, antioxidants. I have a lovely lecture about antioxidants. Is all about to create a good environment for your organism to produce. And of course, one of them, remove yourself from the mold, from dangerous environment into the good environment, and make sure you benefits and use in your nutrition vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium. Support liver with hydration and different sort of fiber, and of course our microbiomes, because microbiomes will support our immune system, and fiber there, they just adore fiber, they need this fiber. If you need, again, if you've been badly affected and you got different sort of medication, antifungal medication, probiotics, quite short period of time after might be the good idea for you. And of course, spend more time outdoors in a clean air environment, not in the funky environment. And of course, stress recovery and sleep. Because sleep is the main drive for recovery and rebuilding our resilience and build up our immune system. Track the symptoms. If you're allergic, just withdraw and take you away from any allergies. You know that since 2018, there's a tragic death of young boy. The parents being aware of negative impact of the mold. However, the action were not taken and boy died. And finally, in created the act under the Homes Fitness for Human Habitation Act 2018, the homes must be mold free. Landlords are legally responsible for fixing damp and mold from structural issues, but if you are a landlord by yourself, it's your responsibility. And if your child died because it's your house and you've been neglectful, you might be under legal and criminal responsibility of your children, for example, if you force them to live in unhealthy environments. And as I said, if it's your own landlord, take it seriously. You have to take actions. Sometimes an entrant, they see the molds and people not taking any actions, and then young children having asthma and chronic conditions, and the parents knowing and seeing the issue, they just, excuse me, painting walls black to remove and make appearance of the wall like fashionable, and the child living under absolutely dreadful and dangerous condition. I fully support in terms of criminal responsibility. If you don't know the law, that time to learn about the danger, it's serious and is a quite immediate effect. Children, they don't have a knowledge, and our adult's job is to inform. If you arrive in the neighborhood of your friends or families or somewhere, then you see dangerous conditions in the mold, report this. Report this to potentially save lives. I'm saying this because I witnessed myself so many neglect. Parents seeing it, parents taking care of their own clothing in bedroom, but absolutely neglecting children. Saying that, oh, we just painting, this wall is outside, raining it all the time, in the winter, you see, we just painted black, it stinks, and the child have severe issues. That should be penalized, and serious action should be taken. As healthcare professionals, we're all responsible. If they see the issue, they have to report, and I motivate every responsible adult. Take an action, save children from chronic disease, from sometimes reversible chronic conditions they might suffer end of their life, and explain the parents and mature people of the danger, and take immediate actions. Yeah, because we're all responsible for younger generations. If you have a knowledge and they know the impact they might have on mainly vulnerable people, please act. Yeah, it's very important. I think it's a form of humanity, and me, a healthcare professional, I encourage you passing this knowledge, the law, regulation for the well-being of next generation and the well-being of all of us. So key takeaways: mold is a common but preventable environment toxin. It's very dangerous, might be deadful for us. It's impact multiple body systems and of course our mental health. Prevention is adequate ventilation and moisture control if needed, reasonable leak and building construction amendments. Early detection save money, cost, and of course might even save lives. So healthy homes is foundation of lifestyle medicine, is foundation for our well-being. Now let's talk a little bit more about beauty. Beauty is my field, and of course mold affecting our health, and quite often might affect our nail plates. We know the mold is there is a different types of fungi, and usually the nail fungi affected by different fungi, but there's some fungi that they live on the walls in habitat, also might go under the nail plate and create us health issues and some sort of nail fungi issues. They enter through the small cracks or tiny little trauma thrive in the damp and low oxygen nail beds, and quite often might be thick. So they cause discoloration, green, black or brown, and thickening the nail, and the nail might actually, you will see have getting thicker, whiter, discolored, sometimes even smelly, and quite often these people, they had this issue because of the mold in the bathrooms. They constantly in the constant contact with the mold. Here, even when I was treating my patients with laser, there are some treatments that have medication, they have different types of lacquers, nail varnishes, different solutions, and laser. It's very important here after that to make sure you dry your feet. I recommend, and I use for my children as well, special ventilation, the UV light and ventilation heating for the boots for winter time. I highly recommend for everyone. If you have a fungi or you have a wet environment, make sure you have adequate feet care is very important, because usually we don't get enough of feet care and our shoes care during the winter and watery, this wet period of the year. Mold affects also hair and skin. Mold spores can trigger scalp inflammation, the dandruff-like flaking and hair thinning, and even losing the hair thinning and hair issues. Chronic exposure to airborne mold might irritate hair follicles and creating this toxic scalp. And the constant inflammation, quite often you might see around hairlines. Of course, if you bath or a shower room full of fungi, it just stays there, and in chronic exposure will affect it. Skin rashes, eczema-like irritations, and the fungi dermatitis, all that will appear on your face with flaky skin, quite often irritated skin, and then you see a lot of spots sometimes getting irritations, and then you see in the hairs and the hair, and they have to start again, in this case, quite complex approach. Remember, the hairdresser or aesthetic medicine or the doctor, even if you're prescribing you shampoo, if you're still living in this environment, it will be very hard and toxic. Remember, medication also toxic. They're not harmless. And this is something we have to understand. We need to find the root of where the problem comes from and treat in the correct, have a more complex approach. Mycotoxin absorbed through the skin might increase inflammation and, of course, oxidative stress, and speeding up our aging, and, of course, shorten our lifespan. And sensitive areas might be groin area, armpit, under ladies with bigger breast, under the breast might have these folds, irritation, and fungi rashes there. Of course, mold playing a crucial role in food preparation because they might grow in the nuts and the fruits, the leftovers. So make sure you can keep kitchen clean. It's very important. The sleeping areas, in this case, and the food, because mycotoxins that survive cooking can harm liver, kidneys, and they're super toxic for us and creating a leaky gut. Yes, so as I said, it's not a joke. It's a very dangerous thing, and I would be stricter, much stricter for responsible parents. And I grown remember myself at this time, then I saw this mold and I'm allergic to this, and I'm quite negative to parent neglect. And okay, 40 years ago, people probably wouldn't take that much action. Some of the moldy corner wouldn't affect you too much. Probably concentration wouldn't hurt, but witnessing this myself and as experienced aesthetic practitioners, how hard it is to treat and get to the beauty and to the health, and the way how we look, our skin, our hair is a mirroring of our health. Our nail plates, how we look like, is all together. It beauty and health is inside out. And if you want to cover something with makeup or cover something with a black paint, the problem still stays there. It's in the air. You see, like, it's in the air. It's in the air. It's all about it, yeah. And in the air is inside and outside. Of course, lungs here is affected the most. In here, spores irritate airways, causing coughing, sneezing, and breathlessness. Sometimes have even this worsen everything, including even your anxiety, panic attacks. Chronic explosion might cause asthma-like inflammation, hypersensitivity. Worsen your cardiovascular diseases, immunosuppressing people as well, infection disease, any cold might stay much longer. In recovery time will be with more severe temperatures, fatigue, headaches. You know, it's not a good story. Microbiomes, of course, are discussed, creating dysbiosis, leaking gut, toxin get into the bloodstream, that they have this fogginess. As well, people might be more sensitive to depression, to anxiety, to the mood changes up and down. Of course, it also might affect on the way how we respond to the food and to glucose, and other glucotype might change. Of course, our sleep and brain gut-brain axis, creating all these unpredictable changes. How do I know what's concentration, what's the strain of fungi, what is your antibodies, and how your body responding to that? So that's why, please take it with responsibility. I would say mold is emergency. It's an emergency for all of us, and wish all of you mold-free environment. That's it for today.